Angela, I'm just aware have you raised your hand again, or is that a legacy hand, as they say? Yeah.
No, sorry, it's a legacy.
No,
it will lower.
Thank you. Okay, so welcome everybody. I can see people coming in. The participants number is rising very excitingly. We're at 76, 77. Fantastic. So we're going to make a start straight away, because we have a very, very exciting and very inspirational and very speedy, punchy event planned for you. We have 17 speakers across 2 hours, including the wonderful Women Ed London team. It's going to be refreshing, it's going to be inspirational, it's going to be empowering, and it's also going to leave you drenched and soaked in inspiration in order to, you know, get on with your Saturday and your Sunday, and actually lead up to Monday, International Women's Day. And we want to kind of get you in the best place for that, and onwards into the next year. So my name is Kate. I'm Kate Fallon. I am part of Women Ed London, which is a fantastic group to be part of. We all have a real passion and enthusiasm to support and empower and enable women in educational leadership at all levels, to do the very best for you, and also for the young people and children that we work with. So, moving on to the next slide, please. Welcome, and the next one. I wanted to highlight this to everybody. We have a Menti meter. You may have come across this. It's a website that basically collates hundreds and hundreds of answers from across the Women Ed community, across the whole world. You literally just go to menti.com. You use this code 87625047. So please write that down. Please write that down, or take a picture of it, because you're going to go there, you're going to see that question, what are the barriers to women leading education? And we would like to know your answers. Menti.com collates all those answers from all the Women Ed events across the world, and we're going to get an extremely interesting picture and answer to that question. And at the end of our event, we're gonna have a look at the answers that are coming through for us as well. Okay, so moving on. All right, just a really super quick refresher. I'm sure lots of you are part of the Women Ed community already, but we wanted to ground the beginning of our webinar in what is Women Ed and who are we. So our mission is to have more women in education, to have the choice to progress on their leadership journey, and not feel suppressed. Next slide, please. Women Ed is based on our 8 C's that connect existing and aspiring women leaders in education. And these C's are a really important reflection to come back to: clarity, communication, connection, collaboration, confidence, community, challenge, and change, ? And we come back to these 8 C's as we move through our career, and as we move through our what we're doing every day and every week. Thank you, Paula. Next slide. So just a quick overview of our most current Women Ed campaigns. We're trying to increase representation in leadership roles. We're increasing diversity and representation of women in leadership roles. We're really pushing for flexible working and being an advocate at the table when talking about flexible working. And of course, we are one of our huge aims is to reduce the gender pay gap. Thank you, Paula. And just to highlight to you, we have 31 Women Ed networks in 20 countries. This was a community that started with kind of 3 or 4 people on Twitter, and now reaches thousands and thousands of women working in education. And it's in that spirit that we want to have this event today. It's about connection, it's about collaboration. We're really excited about it. Thank you. Next slide. I'll come back to this, but our publications, we have 2 now, and I know that the reviews show that they really give people and lots of women something to think about. Lots of stories from lots of individuals about how they have been 10% braver themselves and what successes they've had from feeling like that. Thank you. So we have, as I said, 17 different speakers today, ranging across the educational landscape. If you show me the next slide as well, Paula, just to give people a sense of who is speaking. As people are speaking, they will have their Twitter handle on their slide, so you'll on their own little tile. So you'll see that, you know, feel free to ask questions, feel free to at them, feel free to tweet your comments and at them as well. We're all about connecting, we're all about collaboration and working together. So please connect with them through Twitter, that would be amazing. All right, and the last slide, please. So we're going to come to this at the end, but we really want you to use Twitter, use the hashtags. Just to point out, is hashtag WomenEd. Don't faff it around with something on the end of it. Hashtag WomenEd, that's all you need to write, because that produces a fantastic stream, a story of the event and all the events happening all over the world. So then you can go into hashtag WomenEd and pick up all these fantastic tweets. Of course, it's hashtag International Women's Day 2021 as well, same thing. So please, please, please tweet. We're going to ask you to pledge at the end. We're going to come back to the Mentimeter at the end. Yeah, there's the code again, 87625047. I feel like I'm doing a telethon. Maybe we need to do that. Maybe that's a way to raise money and awareness in the future. All right, we are going to get started. I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker to set us off on our inspirational journey of Saturday afternoon. And we have Karen Giles. Over to you, Karen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, WomenEd, for inviting me to speak, especially first. I'm going to speak today about a woman's prerogative to pivot on her heels. And again, thank you for the opportunity. I last had the opportunity to speak for the International Women's Day a few years ago, when we were grateful that some women had the right to vote for the previous 100 years. I've never called myself feminist, but a feminist is what a feminist does. So since Brene Brown gave us permission to be vulnerable, who gave us permission to challenge? We did. In the last year, we've been witness to poor models of crisis leadership, either wrong and strong or incoherent, which has cost lives and taught us more about how not to lead than how to lead greatly. So this is what I've learned. 5 things. Voice, choice, and equal value. Choosing to challenge the status quo, to be curious, speak up passionately, courageously, feeling the fear and doing it anyway, raising our hand high and persistently, avoiding the path of least resistance, and showing up for ourselves and others to move us empathetically and exponentially forward. 2, if ever there's a time to exercise your autonomy, it's now. Guidance is not gospel. Hashtag choose to challenge. In life and death situations, make evidence-informed decisions, synthesize many sources of information, contextualize and take action in a timely fashion. Number 3, I have imperatives and I'm not afraid to use them. For far too long, women have been caveating their statements of fact with, I think, check yourself. Why am I talking? Don't feel you have to send out a jolly newsletter every week. When you communicate succinctly, say what you mean and mean what you say confidently. Number 4, a woman's intuition is not some mystical guessing. It's experience, maturity, what you've observed with your own eyes, putting 2 and 2 together and making 4.0 and trusting yourself. It's not because you're premenstrual, menopausal, emotional, deluded, or cray-cray. And number 5, we have many examples of government U-turns. However, it's a woman's prerogative to change her mind when information is coming at you, and rather than lead staff, children, parents, community down what you know is the wrong path, pivot on your heels rather than pride tripping you up. So just remember, sisterhood, try and use this networking opportunity to grab yourself a career sponsor and a mentor. And I'm really looking forward to learning from my sisters for the rest of today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. To the point, straight in there, starting us off. Thank you. Fantastic. Right, I'm seeing lots of comments coming in here on the chat. Keep it up, everyone. We've got 102 participants right now. Looking good. Right, we're gonna move over to our next speaker, and our next speaker is Sian Williams. And Sian, I've got some slides for you. Would you like me to pop those up?
Yep, perfect, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a couple, just to keep me on track.
Yeah, no worries. Here they come. Okay. Can we see those, Sian?
We can now.
Fantastic.
Nearly there, nearly
Brilliant.
there.
There we go.
Splendid, thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I've had a wonderful day. I've spoken, I've introduced somebody in Women's Ed South and South East this morning, where I come from, and I'm really pleased to be able to speak to you today. Thank you, Karen. You've opened the show in style, I would say, being an ex-actress. And I want to follow up really, Karen, on what gave me the courage and the confidence to challenge. I've only been ahead for a year. What a year to choose. And I've reflected this year on what has given me the self-confidence to challenge and challenge and challenge again. So Karen, if you could show the next slide, then there we will see how I've synthesized my thoughts. We had to take a leap of faith. I took a massive leap of faith this year. I didn't have time to question myself, and I'm sure none of us did. So I thought about all the people who believed in me already, and then I decided that I had to go for it, thinking if it works, it will. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world, and we haven't got time to worry about if it goes wrong. We still have to challenge. And all the way through this year, as I have in my entire teaching career, it's been, who are you fighting for? And I always ask if this will benefit the students, and if it does, I do it. And we all know that when we're having that moment of self-doubt, it's so much easier to fight for somebody else than it is to fight for yourself. So who better to fight for than every single student in my school? I've always been told that I lead with honesty and authenticity. My greater advocate is my older sister, and she always says to me, be who you are, don't be anyone else. I remember once in the staff room when I was a deputy, coming across the whole staff on a Friday afternoon, had discovered there was a slight slope to our temporary accommodation, and were wheeling each other down it in a swivel chair. I walked in and they looked at me with horror. I thought, what's going to happen? And what happened? I said, oh, I'll have a go, and got caught by the head teacher as I was being pushed across the staff room in a swivel chair. But that was about authenticity. And that is about me sometimes in leadership, just putting my head on the desk and letting my team know that it's not always easy. You're right, Karen. I always trust my instincts. I'm quite old now, just got my jab today. Instincts, common sense, and the courage of my convictions is what pushes me forward. And I rely on and trust my staff. I'm a firm believer in the 90% that can, and then focusing on the 10% who can't. So I trust my staff, I trust my leadership team, and they come to me again and again with success. So it's always good to trust. Have that self-belief. All of you out there, have that self-belief. You've got this far. You have 100% success rate so far in your life because you are here. You've succeeded 100% so far. So believe that you can. I had an interesting conversation with one of my colleagues on the leadership team this week who was about to present. And I said, will you be thinking about the fact that you are being listened to by women? He is not a woman, obviously. And he said, no, I never think about the fact that you are a female leader, Sian. I only think about the fact that you are a leader. And oh my goodness me, if I'd known that for the decades that I have been striving to get where I am today, that everybody looks at me and says, you are a leader. They don't look at me and say, you're 4'11" and you're a woman and you're 52, you're 57. They look at me and say, you are my leader. And that gave me the strength and the courage to move forward as a person, not as a woman, but as a person. And what I will do, continue to do, is balance that self-belief and that self-confidence with humility. It's so important to say, do you know, I got that wrong. I'm not perfect. I made a mistake. And I do that with my staff, and I do that with my students, and I do that with the parents. And that gives me the courage to move forward and challenge things because, okay, I made a mistake. I'm really sorry. I'll try it this way. COVID, I've mentioned it, I'm sorry, has given me the opportunity to start my journey as a principal with a level playing field. I looked around me and thought, nobody's had these challenges before. So that head teacher of 17 years is as equally inexperienced right now as I am. And that also gave me the courage of my convictions and the confidence to challenge, because I knew I was on a level playing field. And I am going to take that forward, that level playing field belief, as I move on, because I have learned so much. I am so ready for the future, and this will be a level playing field for us all from now on. Kate, could I have the next slide, please? So what happened? Well, I was also told, alongside humility, should be celebration, and a celebration of me and my team is what I'm doing right now with this slide. I've had so many parent emails from parents and from other colleagues in the MAT. My team and I have been successful. And if you can see on this slide, my good old-fashioned evidence. So it moves from left to right. This is the number of students in my school. 2009 are the first two. The number of applicants and the number we took. I wasn't there. 2020, the number of applicants and the number we took. And on March the 1st, 2021, that very long, high bar is the 314 people who applied for my 150 places. And for the first time in 14 years, the school is full. I am so excited and so delighted and self-congratulatory, because it is this style of leadership that has led me to have that self-confidence and belief. And now here is the evidence to show for it. So my final thoughts, Kate, if I could have the last slide. Now is the time to challenge on every level. I feel that we are all in a better place because of COVID, because at last parents are beginning to trust us. I saw a fabulous meme yesterday asking if any parents would like to continue to self-teach at home. And the response was, I would rather staple my breasts to a beehive and smear them in honey than to continue to teach at home. So finally, we are acknowledged, admired, appreciated as professionals. So my last question is, will the establishment be able to throw away all those big irrelevant plans that we did and move on to something greater and better as we choose to challenge? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Sian. Really inspirational, that balance between humility and absolute celebration of those amazing numbers and everything else. Thank you, Sian. Okay. We are moving into our next speaker, and our next speaker is the fantastic Kathleen. So I'm going to pass over to you now, Kathleen.
Hello, hi everybody. I just want to say again, thank you to Women Ed London and Women Ed in general for this opportunity. And I'm going to talk to you really about being authentic whilst acting like an acting head teacher. So one of the things I just want to say really is that every day women are challenged just due to their gender. We're always being challenged. So choosing to challenge is something that I think is just within us, because we're facing that battle all the time. And to be honest with you, it's mentally exhausting, and I'm mentally exhausted from shrinking myself. So I'm an introvert, so I must accept that. However, that is not a weakness and it is a strength. So back last year, I think it was perhaps November time, I was asked to be acting head, and just for a short term, it's just for a half term. And immediately I kind of, went back to thinking, oh, shall I, shan't I? But then I thought about the two most powerful words, yes and no. And although they are short words, they are the words that make the biggest difference to your life and your opportunities that may come. So I considered what cost it would be if I said no. So obviously I said yes. So I thought when I was saying yes, that I'll be blowing open the doors to opportunities and impending experiences, which I did have during that half term. So, and I realized that the experiences will obviously just lead to growth. So the 3 C's that I've heard mentioned today already, that you were talking about, Sean, particularly, was courage, confidence, and challenge. And that's what I took forward with me when I was doing that role for that short time. And it was a difficult time, because when I said yes, again, I didn't know that, you would go into lockdown 3 again, but I rose to the challenge and I took it on. So again, I mean, I have to think about, at that opportunity, what really, if I was to say no, what cost would that have been? I would have missed out on the experiences. So now what I consider carefully every time that somebody asks me something is to consider carefully how I answer yes and no, because they are game changers. And I just want us all to really think about that. Just simply saying a yes and a no can completely blow open your world to new opportunities and those impending experiences that you just don't know what's coming along. And mainly the battles that we're facing sometimes is not just with men or other people, it's that battle within ourselves. It's those voices and those stories that we keep telling ourselves. And that inner voice is so powerful. I mean, it can tell us, you're not good enough, and that imposter syndrome comes along. And that's particularly why I said acting like an acting head teacher, because I thought, I'm an acting head teacher, but I'm also acting to be it. But no, I'm not acting to be it. I can do that. So I had to recognize, I really had to dig deep and recognize that I belonged in the position that I am in. And one of the things that someone said to me is, have you ever thought about the conversations that are happening when you're not in the room? And if you think about that, what are the conversations that are happening when you're not in the room? And it's those conversations that you have an impact on. The only way that you can impact those conversations is to think about doing your best. So you owe it to yourself really to always do your best and challenge yourself and push yourself forward. Because when you're pushing yourself forward, people are watching, seeing your impact, and they are then having those conversations about you when you're not in the room. So you do have that power, and you have that empowerment that comes from your voice and your actions and your choices. So one of the things that I said, one of the biggest things that I did in January is I had an inset for all of the staff about thriving through tough times. And the key focus there was the circle of control. And that's the only thing that you can control is your circle. So through my circle, what I'm learning to control is my thoughts, my decisions, and my efforts. Because they're the only 3 things that I can always control, and then that in turn has impact on others, and that influences the conversations that happens in the room when you're not there. So those experiences mattered to me in that short time. So I've learned and I'm growing, but most importantly, I learned to authentically be me, and that was my choice to lead consistently in that way. So this is my driver in everything that I do, is my thoughts, my decisions, and my efforts, and this is the challenge that I chose.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I am loving the fact that we're getting all these different perspectives, even after only 3 speakers. Fascinating and really interesting and really open. Thank you for that, Kathleen. Right, we are moving on, and we've got a slightly different way of doing this at the minute. We have Priya Burton with us today, but Priya has recorded herself, which I am really pleased about, because we're going to show you a YouTube presentation of Priya's work. So bear with me, and I'm just going to share that.
I'll just say hello. And I'm feeling the imposter syndrome, listening to everyone. It sounds absolutely fantastic. I feel so inspired to be here. My take is something slightly different. I'm looking to invest in teachers and leaders. So that's what I'll be talking about in this video. Thank you.
Thanks, Priya. I'm going to press play. Stop me right away if you can't hear what Priya is saying. It doesn't start speaking for a tiny bit, so give it a couple of seconds.
Hello, I'm Priya, and I am an ex-teacher, counsellor and mum, and now a campaigner. I'm campaigning for government to provide counselling for teachers within school. As an ex-teacher, I know how hard I worked. I know how many weekends I lost, how many evenings I worked, what kind of hours were normal. And as I've come out of teaching, I've realised that that's not normal. And it's not okay. And I would sacrifice things. I would sacrifice spending time with my children. I would sacrifice my health and my well-being. I'd sacrifice interests, hobbies, meeting up with friends, all those things that make me who I am. I absolutely loved being a teacher. I only stopped due to illness, not from burnout. And burnout's the number one reason that teachers don't teach anymore. They leave the profession. And the numbers that leave within the first 5 years are a third. That's a lot of teachers that have invested their time and money to qualify, only to leave within 5 years because the sacrifice is too great. What I want is that we invest in our teachers. We look after their well-being and we prioritise their mental health. By doing that, we're going to help recruitment and retention, and we're going to directly influence the mental health of our young children, of all those children going through into their futures throughout schooling. If they are taught by someone who is an inspiration and a role model in many ways, including well-being and mental health, that's going to be so powerful. That's going to stay with our children. We need to invest in them. We need to do it now. We need to stop losing teachers. It's not okay. It's not okay that they leave with heavy hearts. It's not okay that it's normal to wear the badge of honour of coming to work when you're ill. I know there are many heads who don't expect that. And it's not with heads that I'm talking about. The responsibility lies. Teachers choose this for themselves. Absolutely they do. I remember thriving off of the more work I did. The list was never ending, and I was okay with that for very many years. But it's not okay now, and I understand that, having left. I want my children to be taught by teachers who are happy, who are balanced, who have interests outside of school, who have time to go to the dentist. If they have an issue, they have time to get counselling for it. At the moment, how many teachers can really do that and feel happy to do that and be supported to do that? This petition could help a culture shift. We could start normalising mental health at the workplace being a priority. Isn't that what we want? To really end the stigma. Please invest in teachers now. Change.org, counselling for teachers. Sign, share and show your support. Please invest now.
Fantastic. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Priya, thank you so much. Do you want to say again where the petition is?
Yes, I've tweeted it as well, but it's change.org, counselling for teachers.
Fantastic. Priya, thank you. You know, I heard words there like caring and counselling, more C's, but really your courage as well in filming yourself to be on this webinar this afternoon. So thank you ever so much for that. That really
Thank
was
you for letting me. I'm a
yeah,
teacher at heart, and I'm fighting for teachers from the outside, and I really care. You know, I want us to last the distance, because you're super duper people, you know, and our children deserve to be cared for by teachers who are cared for. That's my tagline, and now I'll zip it.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Get tweeting, everybody. Get tweeting the link to that petition. And thank you, Priya. Right, we are moving on to two colleagues who I think are going to do a little tag team. Firstly, we have Rebecca and then Sarah from the Teacher Wellbeing Project. And would you like me to share your slide? Yeah. Let me get that up. Okay, share screen. Here we go. Over to you, Rebecca.
Perfect. Hi. Oh, the slides are a bit half cut. I don't know if it's just me. Can you see? Lovely.
There we go. And actually, I need to put the first one on and then present.
Thank you.
No worries.
It's a real pleasure to join you, actually. We are kind of new to Twitter and found the Women Ed department and Women Ed team, and it seems like some great work that you're doing. So I'm Rebecca Daniel, one half of the Teacher Wellbeing Project, along with Sarah Bramall, and we're both ex-teachers of English and literacy, and we have left the classroom, but actually it doesn't mean our hearts left education at all. We definitely understood the pressures of teaching and the pressures that it enabled or kind of disabled us to do. So I'm going to be talking to you guys today about how you're going to choose to challenge yourself. Oh, that was a bit of a tongue twister, that one. How you're going to choose yourself. And I'm going to ask you when the last time was that you said yes to yourself. This is a really funny question, right? When was the last time you said yes to yourself? But in all seriousness, if you're saying, do you know what? I say yes to myself all the time, then I'm going to give you a virtual high five. But if you're listening to this and you're recalling and trying to recall events where you've actually put yourself first, then I'm going to ask you to really listen and listen with intent today. So our well-being is multi-dimensional. I think people always think that our well-being is just our mindset, right? But it's actually a lot deeper rooted than that. There are different facets to our well-being, and what I find, and I've got this lovely diagram here with a little jigsaw puzzle piece, right, is that when one becomes a little bit out of alignment, we start to feel it. We start to feel it physiologically, we start to feel it mentally, we start to feel it in our relationships with people. And the reason why this is really important to me is because when we are not okay, then it's quite hard for us to give our best to our loved ones, our best to the students, our best to the parents, our best to the colleagues that we work with. And so I'm really guilty. I'm not going to stand here or sit, in my case, and tell you that I said yes to myself all the time. And I know that Sarah's going to say to me, totally agree with you. Because I actually went through a 10-year career and I loved it. I loved every day of coming in and seeing the smiles on the kids' faces. And obviously I didn't like all the time when I worked in a boys' secondary school. So that was, yeah, a bit of fights were quite commonplace, but I loved it. But when I stepped back from the classroom after having my daughter, I didn't realise how much I'd neglected myself. I didn't realise that I'd probably not been for my smear test, for example. A bit too much information, but I'd, you know, urge you all to go, advocate for that as well. I didn't realise that, you know, the dentist appointment I'd put off. I didn't realise that I had low iron, for example. I didn't realise why I was always tired. I thought I was always tired because, well, I stayed up marking books as an English teacher, right? And then when I started to have more time to myself, I actually stepped back and I said, if I actually took the time out to just focus on myself, I probably would have still stayed in the classroom. And it took me to be outside of that bubble to realize that. And so I really want you guys to do this audit with me, which is what I did. I looked at all aspects of my well-being. I looked at my physical, because like cars, right? If we don't regularly maintain them, they won't perform at their best. You probably break it down at the side of the motorway. And if we look at our spiritual well-being as well, our spiritual doesn't have to be religious, by the way, but our spiritual being could be our connection to ourselves. It could be just even going out for walks in nature, right? It could just be getting fresh air. It could just be working within, meditating, journaling, all the things that I put off. And then we could look at our intellectual, because we're teachers, right? We love to learn. I don't know if anyone wears that badge of honor that I'm a lifelong learner, but we love to learn. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get qualifications and, you know, formal education. Expanding your knowledge can be in any way. You can expand your knowledge on personal development. You can expand your knowledge on, I don't know, how to be a better parent, how to love your child and balance at the same time. You can expand your knowledge in so many different ways. And the social aspect was definitely key to me, because I'm very much a social creature. I'm quite extroverted. But I would always say to my friends, oh, not this weekend. Not this weekend. Oh, sorry, mum, not this weekend. But actually I realised, especially now through the pandemic, how important that social aspect is. And surrounding yourself with positive people, people that motivate you and support you. And then if we look at our emotional, and Carol Dweck always is kind of my icon when it comes to our emotional and satisfying our minds with positive thoughts, and knowing that we can be and do and have whatever we want, whatever we desire. But I want you to challenge yourself today. I want you to choose to challenge yourself and put yourself first. We're in a profession, again, where we give so much of ourselves to others, naturally. And that's admirable. But that's not sustainable if you're not putting yourself first. Always, at every step of the way. So I'd love you to join me in the chat as well and let me know what you're going to choose to challenge today in terms of your well-being. Whether it's that physical well-being, that you've had this gym membership for a bit too long and you've never stepped foot in the gym. Totally guilty of that. But again, I want you to improve your well-being by filling up that metaphorical tank with good food and being well watered. You can tell I love metaphors, right, as a teacher of English. So thank you for joining this wonderful event today, and thank you for listening to this, because it's something that's really close to my heart. And if you'd love to connect with Sarah and I, we've got a little link at the bottom and you can direct to the work that we do. And our mission is to create a culture of well-being, a culture which is centralized about well-being, around well-being, but not just for teachers, although teachers are very close to our heart, right? But teachers, students, parents, the community. I think it's more important now than ever before. I don't think it's just something that's just here for today. It's a journey, and we'd love to embark on that journey with you. So I'm going to hand over to my tag team buddy over there, and Sarah Bramwell will be talking to you about how you can choose to challenge with her 4 pillars of wellbeing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Fantastic. Would you like the next slide, Sarah? I'm guessing. Yeah, there we go.
Very much. So put yourself first, or schedule yourself first. And that phrase doesn't come from myself or from Rebecca, but from a former First Lady of the United States. And when you think schedule yourself first, you might be thinking Melania Trump. But in fact, schedule yourself first comes from Michelle Obama, because what Michelle Obama learned through her life and what she now teaches to others is that we have to put our well-being first. We have to put our self-care first so that we are in a position to give to others. So referring back to Rebecca's lovely image of the jigsaw, an image that I'd like to share with you is a table of well-being, or a table of self-care. Because so often we neglect our most basic needs. And when we think about self-care as being like a table, we can think, okay, what do I need to keep my table upright? What do I need to keep my table stable and secure? What are the legs that hold up my self-care? Now, it might be that it's something physical, like remembering to drink enough water. It might be as basic as getting enough sleep. It might be fulfilling our intellectual, our mental needs, as Rebecca mentioned, through reading, through learning, through growth. It might be spiritual. It might be connection with others. It might be meditation. It might be time in nature. Or it might be ensuring that our emotional needs are met. So I'd like you to really think about today, what are the 4 legs that hold up my table of self-care? And if I let one of those legs go, my table's going to start getting a little bit rocky. And if I neglect that altogether, my table might even collapse. And I'd really like you to pop into the chat box, please. What do you think your 4 pillars, or your full 4 legs of self-care might be? Now, you might be thinking, gosh, Sarah, I don't think I've got time or capacity to think about my emotional needs, my spiritual needs, etc. And I would say to you that if you find this idea overwhelming, just to start with 10 minutes a day, because we can all find 10 minutes a day. And often first thing in the morning, before the rest of the day takes over, can be a really good time to think, I'm just going to start with one thing. It might be that we think, okay, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes a day just to read, or 10 minutes of silence where I'm not scrolling through my phone, I'm not responding to emails, or I'm just going to start by walking around the block. So it can be something that's very simple, but that can help us just to get started on that journey, that process of self-care. And I can see your comments coming in the chat there, so thank you so much. And another metaphor, a final metaphor, and it is one that's overused in the world of self-care, but I still find it really, really valuable. In normal life, when we're allowed to, when we get on an aeroplane, the flight attendant will say to us, please apply your own oxygen mask first before you do so for somebody else. And that is a super valuable and important metaphor, that when we take care of ourselves, we take care of our well-being, we are then positioned to do the same for other people. So this is about us as a profession taking care of ourselves so that we can continue to serve, we can continue to contribute, and we can continue to give to others. And thank you so much for your contributions here. So we've got Tina, exercise, reading, friends and family, sabbaticals, Kathleen, are productive, Holly, prayer, sleep, time outdoors, hugging my husband. I love that. Wonderful. Thank you. And Andreas is going for a walk, fitness classes, solitude and peace time. So whatever those things are for you, just take a minute to draw out the table and to write down, what is holding up my self-care? And please take care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank
you so much, Rebecca and Sarah. Fabulous. Loads of, I love your metaphors. I love your metaphors. I like to visualize, and you've really helped me to get to that place of stability and self-care. Thank you.
No problem.
Keep those comments coming in to the chat. Keep tweeting, everybody. Just before we have a break, we have our next speaker, and actually it's another, oh, I beg your pardon, I've missed one. I'm so sorry. Yolande, sorry, I couldn't see my running order and I jumped right over you. So I've got huge pleasure in introducing a fabulous team, and we've got one member of the team here, Mindful Equity, and we've got Yolande talking to us today. Off you go, thank you.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you for inviting us to speak at the Women Ed event today. I absolutely love Women Ed, and it's been a huge part of my personal teaching career. As Kate just mentioned, I am 50% of the organisation Mindful Equity. My wing woman can't be with us today, but she sends her love and wishes. I want to start off with a story of me being honest with you about what it can be like at the top as a woman in leadership in education. I started in a new school as an assistant head and a director of sixth form. And interestingly, there is only one other Black woman on the leadership team. When she is about to return from maternity leave, a sort of air in the school started to build up. Students were like, oh, I wonder if they're going to get on with each other. Colleagues would ask, have you spoken to her? Have you met her yet? What is it going to be like with the two of you on the leadership team? And it reminded me of a conversation that I had with Aretha, my co-founder of Mindful Equity, about leadership for women of colour, leadership for women, period, can be competitive by design. Why that is because we already know as women that there is this glass ceiling. And we've done a lot as an organisation, as Women Ed and various different other networks that have come together to break that glass ceiling. Yet there still seems to be this underlying tone of, well, is there space for every single one of us? Once you've got up there, is it fragile? Once you've got to that position that you've dreamt about, that you've thought about, that you've fought for, is there space for anyone else to join you there? And well, Aretha and I had the pleasure of working on a leadership team together. And it wasn't a question of someone else coming in. It was a question of both of us being on the team at the same time. So we took a lot of time to reflect on why there aren't that many women of colour on leadership teams, but more importantly, why it took us so long to get into leadership. There's a bit of introspection that happens there, looking within and challenging yourself to look in and be honest about your fears, your insecurities. But also there is the looking outside of yourself and thinking about perhaps what are the barriers and challenges that are there to face you. The reason we called our few-minute slot sticks in a bundle are unbreakable, because we understand and acknowledge that the reason we have got to where we are, one of the fundamental reasons, is through allyship and network. Women Ed is a phenomenal, powerful network to be a part of. Likewise, the network that we've created in Mindful Equity is designed really to support early career teachers in the first instance to navigate the plethora of pathways into education, let alone educational leadership. And educational leadership isn't always about a title. It is more often about you having those leadership qualities within yourself to be a leader of your classroom. And so being that it was World Book Day yesterday and I was doing an assembly with my sixth formers, I just want to share with you a quote from the 10% Braver book. I have my copy, of course, and it reads, differences are not intended to separate, to alienate. We are different precisely in order to realise our need of one another. And that's a quote by Desmond Tutu in 2016 in Angela Brown's chapter. Why I've read that to you is quite simple. Every single woman in this session, in our network, in education, in the UK, is an individual, and every single one of you has a phenomenal power that is there to transform the lives of those that you touch. Tap into your power, embrace your difference, and slay in your lane.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. And that word power and powerful, you know, grips us, galvanizes us into action. Thank you. Brilliant. Right, just before we stop for a super quick break on our speedy, punchy session today, I'm delighted to share with you a little film made by one of our Women Ed London team members, who's up on the screen with me here, Yamina. So Yamina interviewed her colleague and head teacher, Tamina Begum, who is the head teacher at Forest Gate Community School in Newham. So we're going to show you the film of them doing that, and Yamina doing a fantastic job as a journalistic interviewer. She is multi-skilled. Right, so I'm going to share the screen. Do you want to say anything as I'm doing that, Yamina?
I was just going to say, so we've been really thinking about, as a school, about inclusive, diverse leadership. But what I'm inspired by Tahmina, because she's one of the youngest head teachers and visibly Muslim women in the country. And so you can see I was really nervous interviewing my head teacher, but she's also a really good friend, and she's phenomenal and such an ally for others as well. So we hope you enjoy the interview. If we could put it on full screen, have her face there, that'd be great. Thank you, Kate.
No worries. Let me know if the sound is funny. Yeah.
Hi Tamina, how are you? I'm okay, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for the Women Ed London event. We're really excited to have you. So we're going to ask you a few questions. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and just be as honest as possible. Is that okay? I will try my best. Thank you. So tell us more about your career in teaching, how it started, and what's led you to this point in your career.
So throughout school, I always wanted to be an English teacher. And then my sister became a science teacher. My brother became a maths teacher. And then I was like, I don't want to copy them. So I decided I didn't want to be a teacher anymore, but secretly I did. I did a psychology degree, and I thought, let me go down the educational psychology route. And back then you needed a doctorate, PhD, but you needed school-based experience. So that's when I applied to a school in Tower Hamlets, where I thought, let me get experience there, and they made me do like academic tutoring. And then before I knew it, I was suddenly teaching unqualified. And by the end of that year, I was like, I really, really like this. And the deputy head there convinced me to do the QTF. So convinced me to do the GTP at that time. And I thought, oh, you know, he really took time out of his very busy day. He was deputy head, to basically mentor me and to encourage me to apply for that route. And so the following year I did, and I ended up staying there to do my training and my NQT year in English.
And then what? What happened next?
And then it's also where I met Sham. So you know about Sham. So Sham was my mentor, unofficial mentor in the beginning. And in my early days, it was a really special thing for me because I was an unqualified teacher. Everyone was a little bit busy, you know, to mentor someone new. And teachers are busy, so I didn't really mind. But Sham was like, no, Tamina, I'm going to mentor you. Don't worry about it. She kind of took me under her wing, and I was quite shy. I was a little bit reserved, and I worked in a brilliant English department, so I felt a little bit like overwhelmed, you know, a little bit intimidated by how good they were. But she really worked on kind of building my confidence, giving me lots of feedback, you know, just having a chat with me at the end of the day. And so when it came to the end of my NQT year, I found out there was a job going at Forest Gate. So I thought, let me apply for it. I didn't want to, but Sean was like, go on, you might as well just give it a go kind of thing. It's good for the experience as well. And I don't think I would have had the guts to apply for it if it wasn't for her. Came to Forest Gate, got the job as a 2IC in English. And I've been here for about 8 years now, so I've had various roles since. 2IC, assistant head in charge of English, deputy head in charge of teaching and learning, which was the best job. And now the head teacher job, which is this year's my second year.
And how are you finding being one of the youngest head teachers in the country? I love saying that, by the way.
I know you do. You've said it about 5 times. What do you mean? How am I finding it?
How have you found it over the last 2 years to step in during a pandemic? I remember one of the first things that happened last year was we had Ofsted in February, so last year. How has your head teacher kind of career been so far?
Yeah, so I definitely didn't sign up for this. I was saying, I always say this to people, every role that I've got I didn't see myself definitely doing that role. Each promotion that I've got, I thought I just really wanted to be good at that. So then when a new opportunity came along, so I remember having this conversation actually with Sham when I was doing the 2IC role, and the assistant head job was on the horizon. It was her role. She became very ill. And I think it was more circumstance than anything that I kind of went for it. But I never wanted to do that role because I really wanted to be a really good teacher. I really wanted to really have impact on the students, you know, make a difference. And I wanted to perfect my craft in the role that I had. And each time that I got a new role and someone said, why don't you go to the next thing? You know, this opportunity has come up, which I've been very fortunate to have people around me to push me that way. Each time I was like, no, I can't. I don't think I'll be good at it. I need to perfect this role. But of course, things happen and I've taken on the role. And I think, you know, I forgot your question.
It was about your kind of first 2 years as a head teacher.
Yeah.
How you found it. Maybe thinking about what's been going well, what you'd like to develop on.
Yeah, so I think going back to that point of really focusing on doing the job well, whatever it is. So when I became head teacher, obviously no one knew there was a pandemic going to happen in a few months' time, except Simon Elliott. He predicted it in December. I was determined to, you know, make kind of put my own spin on what was already an amazing school, and I knew that because I've been here for a little while now, and kind of build on the successes of the school already, working with the amazing teams that we have in this school. And that was a little bit intimidating for me because it was a little bit like, oh, you're the youngest head teacher, blah, blah, blah. But that's not an accolade, really. I'm working with such amazing practitioners and standing on the shoulders of giants, really. And I just needed to make sure that I continued that success and most importantly, continued improving the life chances of the children that we serve, which, you know, is everyone's core purpose here, isn't it?
It's really interesting. You just mentioned that, you know, being one of the youngest head teachers is an accolade. What barriers have you faced then, you know, with that title? And what advice would you give to somebody who is in a similar position, maybe quite young, aspiring to senior leadership or headship? What advice would you give them? That was a two-part question.
It was quite a big question. When I hear, you know, really lovely praise, you know, people congratulate me and saying all that, you see my face, it's a little bit like, I don't feel worthy, only because it's the success isn't mine. Like, I work with you, I work with our leadership team in this school is phenomenal. The teachers are just like out of this world in this school, aren't they? Like,
yeah.
The success is these guys, it's the rest of the school, and I'm very, very lucky to have really brilliant mentors, coaches, and I've had that throughout my career from the beginning, and I've been very fortunate to have that. And I know lots of colleagues who, you know, not necessarily have had that when they first started off. So I think one of the piece of advice that I always give is up until the point you have self-belief, which many of us don't in the beginning, especially when we're starting off, find that person who does. Find a school where they value and they invest time in developing you, you know, a school where they invest in quality mentoring, because there probably will be a period where you don't have a lot of self-belief, you're not that confident. But once you get to that bit, you need someone who does your cheerleading for you, who does point out, you know, your talent, recognize your achievement, give you honest feedback so that you can get better and perfect your craft. So it's a bit of a two-part bit of advice there. Find a school and a mentor who values you and who gives you honest feedback, up until the point you have developed that self-belief in yourself. And the third bit, actually, I'll just add on, you need to deliberately develop that self-belief.
How do you do that?
You've got to be conscious of it. You have to identify the things that stop you from believing in yourself. So, you know, I don't think I can go for that, or oh no, I'm not going to be good for that. Or even, you know, minor things like giving an announcement in staff briefing. Oh, I can't do that. It's just, that's not me. Who am I? Why would people listen to me? Well, actually, you are a member of the school community. If someone's asked you to, or you need to give an announcement, whatever the example is, do it, you know. So be deliberately conscious of the voice that's telling you no, or you can't. And if you're conscious of it, you're more likely to disrupt that and get rid of it. And if you can't, you've got a mentor to let you know.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited, by the way, to have you. But yeah, thank you so much for giving up your time to me now.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Fantastic. It's another career for Yamina. Did you want to add anything on, Yamina?
It was about 10 false starts, mostly because of me. I was really inspired by that. And I think the key message for me was that empowered women empower others and empower women. And that was really important. And you could hear that in the interview. And I was just left so inspired that day as well. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Yamina. That deliberate development of self-belief as well, that really touched me. Okay, we are going to take a very short break, very short. It's going to be 3 minutes, just so that we can hear as many people as we can. So please keep tweeting, use the hashtag #WomenEd, hashtag IWD 2021, and we'll see you at 14:08. All right, everybody, I said it was going to be fast. I said it was going to be pacey, and we're back with our next speaker. But just before, super quickly, before Angela takes on from me, I just wanted to remind people about the Mentimeter. Go to menti.com and put in the code and answer that question about the barrier to women in educational leadership. And I know one of my colleagues will put the code in the chat if you haven't seen it. Yeah, keep using those hashtags. Don't forget to have a look at the Women Ed publications, the 2 books that we have published. Really, you know, what you're getting today, those really personal, inspirational stories from people, that's what those books give you as well, you know, so that you've got those to hand, you can dive in and read some fantastic, sort of vulnerable, honest, courageous stories from women and he for she, men who are supporting and enabling women with us. Also, just to say, we are recording this session because there's a Women Ed YouTube, public YouTube. So you just go on YouTube, Google Women Ed, and you'll see, you know, hundreds of films, including this one, once it's been sort of edited and touched up a little bit. And the last thing is, one of our fantastic Women Ed London colleagues is, you know, everybody's talented and skillful and got lots of different talents, and one of our amazing Women Ed London team is a super doodler, and she is doodling and drawing all the way through this experience. So by the end, we're going to have, I think she's tweeted some of her images already, but by the end we must make sure that we celebrate what Claire is doing, because it's beautiful. Right, I am going to hand over to our next speaker, and we're delighted to have Angela Appleby. Oh, thank you. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you very much. And thank you everybody to listening to me today and giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm quite glad that I'm following Break rather than some of the really inspirational women that we've heard from already. So I spent quite some time thinking about what I would talk to you about today. I've only got a short time, so I will get on with it. But I wanted to talk to you about my leadership journey, and especially my leadership journey into becoming a vulnerable leader. My title of my little presentation today is Allowing Yourself to be a Woman in the Workplace. Now, I thought I should title it Allowing Myself to be a Woman in the Workplace because I am. And it's largely allowing yourself to be yourself in the workplace. But that isn't always easy. I started my journey as a teacher 21 years ago. I can't believe it was actually that long. It's my 21st year of teaching. And I remember I had a mentor, an amazing woman, but she gave me the advice: be professional, keep a distance, don't smile till Christmas. Very, very sort of old school idea towards being a teacher. And I thought that's how I should do it. And I went for that. And it was a disaster. I had this appalling year 9 class, and they made me cry, and it was awful and it was horrendous. I'm sure we've all had one of them. And I remember going home to see my dad in my first year of teaching. He's like, what is wrong with you? And I used to manage pubs. That's what I did before I became a teacher. And he would say, I've seen you in pubs with lots of drunk men, and you're able to handle yourself, and you're crying over a group of 14-year-old boys picking on you. And I'm like, okay, no, you're right, Dad. So I really reflected on what I was doing wrong. And when I went back to school, I was myself. I was emotionally exposed. I told the kids that I didn't know all the answers, and I decided to be myself. And you know what, it worked. And the children respected me, and they worked really well with me, and I enjoyed being a teacher from that point forward. As I moved into my second year of teaching, I always remember this, and this is something that stuck with me. There was one of my friends was a male science teacher. He was a very tall, big guy, played rugby. And he said to me one day, how do you control a class really well, being a small woman? I don't understand it. And I reflected on that again, and I'm like, is he referring to my gender, or is he referring to the fact that I'm only 5'2" and I'm teaching a lot of people who are a lot bigger than me? But I think it was because he felt that control, and he felt being a teacher was about being distant and being not emotionally vulnerable. So as a teacher, I grew and I developed in this way, and I've always been this with my children and the children that I teach. But as a leader in school, as I grew in my teaching journey, I really came within myself, and I read a lot of books, a lot of leadership books. Again, as a leader, you need to be distant, and you need to be apart from your team, and you can't expose yourself because then they won't respect you. And when I first became an assistant head teacher, now it was 8 years ago, this was the model I went for. And I think as well, being a woman, and especially I went into an assistant head teacher as a single mom, and being all crazy and looking after areas that I didn't really know much about, I felt I should learn everything. And I think it's a bit like one of the presentations earlier. I didn't really think about myself, and I was like, I'm just going to be tired and I will learn everything. And I tried to do this, but as those of you who have tried to learn everything will know, it's completely impossible. And I came across a brilliant book called Turn the Ship Around by a guy called David Marquette. And he is a captain in the US Navy. And he said that he took over this submarine, and he didn't know everything, and he exposed himself as a leader, and it was just okay. And by doing that, he then empowered his team. And I discovered the work of Brené Brown about the same time. And if you haven't read her book, Daring Greatly, I would advise you to do so, because all those two people are completely separate authors and completely separate backgrounds. Their message is the same, that to be a good leader and to be the leader of people, you cannot be professionally distant. You have to embrace your vulnerability. Vulnerability means embracing uncertainty, embracing risk, and emotionally exposing yourself. It doesn't mean in the emotional exposure, and I didn't really understand this at first, being everybody's friend and telling everybody everything, but it means saying, I don't know. And it means saying, I will find out. And the most powerful 3 words, it means also saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for me has been the 3 words that I have learned to say. And I still find it quite hard as a leader to say I'm sorry, but I think they are the most powerful words that we can do. But we all know, especially as women, we're more likely to suffer from imposter syndrome. And the idea of not knowing everything makes us feel really fearful. 6 in 10 of us actually suffer from imposter syndrome, which I think is a really high number. I've done it here. I've been sitting here listening to all the other amazing women speak, thinking, oh my God, I'm not as good as them. What am I doing? I need to stop. But I am choosing to challenge myself here. So suffering from imposter syndrome and not thinking that you're good enough doesn't allow you to be vulnerable in leadership, because being vulnerable is about exposing yourself to risk and letting other people that you're managing and that you're leading know that you don't know all the answers, but it's okay. And actually, I want to talk about the final book that I want to talk about today was when I discovered the Women's Ed book, Being 10% Braver, because that in itself brought all of those things together. So for me, being 10% braver is when somebody comes into my office and asks me something, I say, I don't know, or I haven't got the answers, or, and it's happened very frequently, I mess up and then I actually go to somebody and say, look, I'm really sorry, I misjudged that situation. I've reflected on it and you were right, I was wrong. Let's just rework how we do this. And once you, as a woman, I think, or as a leader of any gender, learn that that's okay, you become a significantly better leader. So I've started off 21 years ago and I'm finishing off as I'm sitting here today in my brand new house. We moved house yesterday, so I'm surrounded in boxes at the moment, hotspotting off my phone because we have no Wi-Fi, but it's okay. And I'm taking a risk by doing this, but it's good for me. And it's good for me to have that uncertainty in my life. And hopefully my short presentation here has inspired some of you to take a risk. So somebody earlier, and I forgive me, sorry, I can't remember your name, was saying, you know, think consciously about your yeses and your nos. So as you're sitting there at the moment, what is the thing in your head that you want to say yes to, but you're scared of saying yes to that? Are you thinking, I don't want to say yes because you don't know all the answers? But be vulnerable in that. It's okay not to know the answers. You don't need to be imposter. If somebody's asking you a question, it's because they think you are good enough to find out the answer. So allow yourself not just to be a woman, allow yourself to be yourself in the workplace and embrace that vulnerability. And then hopefully, not only will you be happier, but you will also be better at your job and everything else as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angela. Fantastic. Particularly thank you for joining us from your hotspot in your new house, and good luck with the rest of your day. But talk about vulnerable leadership, that's amazing. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to our next speaker, and our next speaker is Jen Crittenden. Jen, have we got you here?
Hello.
Yeah, you're there. Sorry, I'm looking. The screen's not that big. I'm going to share my screen for your slide. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Oop. There we go. Okay, thank you, Jane. Over to you.
Thank you. So I always have my daughter on slides because actually it just helps. And I think it just shows the kind of humane side of me, hopefully. But in January, last year, I became a head teacher. What a year to become a head teacher, as many have said. And then about May time, I got a phone call from my daughter's school. Could I be a governor? And I kind of said, well, I'm already a governor. My husband will be really good at it. Kind of like, just land him in it. And then I got a phone call from the head and she's like, actually, that's not really what we were thinking. We kind of need someone with education. Can can you help us? And she sounded really desperate, and I just thought, well, I can for an interim, you know, we're in a pandemic. I get you can't really go out there right now, but it's got to be interim. I'm full. And then about a week later, the chair rang me. Interesting phone call. He was odd. Don't know if I can say that. If you know him, I'm sorry. But he was, yeah. Oh, the head's not doing what I want. The head's not doing this. The head, I'm just really anti her. And I kind of started thinking, what have I got myself into? And he went, I just want you to dig, and I want you to give me a grading of what she's like. You know, you work in schools, you can do that. I was kind of like, this is not what. And I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And I just left it. Arranged my visit, sat down with the head and the other kind of people on the committee. And the whole thing just felt weird. Like, she really knew the school. She was super honest. She told us what was good. She told us what was bad. She knew what was happening, and she knew that school, but something wasn't right. So I kind of waited and hung around a little bit, pretended I was tying my shoes and all the rest of it, and waited for everyone else to go, and kind of went, what, off the record, what's going on? And she just crumbled. She burst into tears. This woman who I chose the school because I loved her for my daughter crumbled. I was thinking, what on earth is going on? Went to my first FGB about a week later, and it was probably the worst 3 hours I've ever had. I sat there listening to a person who didn't want anyone else's opinion, had the agenda, openly pulled people to bits in front of us, and no one challenged. And I just kind of sat there thinking, oh no, what? I don't want to be associated with this. I've just joined a headship. It's a small world in education. I was thinking, I can't do this. Dared to try and challenge and got told to shut up, what would I know, by another person on the board. And I am very northern. I'm an ex-military wife, you know, and I had to really bite my tongue of, this is going to take some interesting times ahead. Came off the phone and kind of went ranting to my husband. I'm sure you all do that. I can't believe this. And to the point, I was like, I've got to pull her out of that school. I can't have her in that school. Like, I know I've got my two separate heads here, but no way is she being surrounded by that. And I thought, no, that's not the right way to go. So I tried to challenge him. I thought, right, no, come on, big girl pants on, Jen, you can do this. Did the phone call, covered in kind of anxiety rash that you get, with my script in front of me. And he belittled me. He told me that he didn't think I would challenge. That's why they'd asked me to be on the board. That I was quite busy, and you know, when I get to his point in life, I'll understand these things. I was just kind of like, no, this is not happening. To find out that actually he only had 2 months left to sit on the board, I thought, right, that's going to be my project. I'm going to find someone who can be the chair. Great. Very naive of myself, because they'd already got it lined up. The buddy was going to be the new chair. He was going to leave, and I was like, no, this isn't happening. I spoke to staff, I spoke to governors. Governors were leaving. Staff openly said he doesn't like women. Good luck. You know, we've given up challenging. I was like, no, this isn't right. You know, it was ridiculous situation. And I thought, right, just take some time. Got to the summer holidays, and you know, I'm sure most of us collapsed in the summer holidays. I went to my mum's like a big girl and thought I'm going to go get looked after. And it didn't stop. It carried on. These horrible emails where they were calling out the head teacher in front of the whole governing body, and it was just toxic. It was horrible. And I thought, no, I've got to do something. So when it came to elections, this person put their name in. I was like, no way, we've got to do something else. We spoke to lots of people, and we went, right, we'll buy ourselves some time. I'll put myself in interim. I did not want it. I am not some egotist. I didn't want it. And I thought, right, it'll buy us time to find someone. I haven't got time, I haven't got capacity, but at least I know schools and I know what they're going through at the moment. So it came to it, we got to the meeting, and the other candidate quit before we started to try and derail the situation. So it was a really horrible situation. Anyway, like, long story short, I am now the chair of this school. And I am really critical. I like to challenge and I like to kind of do things, but I think there's a way of doing it that was very different. The school isn't perfect, but that head teacher knows that, and she knows what needs to be done. So actually, I do challenge, and we've really worked on that, but it's that SLT thing where we go, let's do it behind a closed door. I will say, what on earth are you thinking? Why have you done this? But actually having that honesty, and she's now ringing me and going, this has happened, what do I do? Whereas before she was so scared too. The staff, I've talked to every single one, I've rang them, you know, and things that have been above and beyond what I would normally do as a chair, kind of saying, look, I am not checking in on the logistical things, but you know, what's happening, how are you feeling, and all those kind of things, just so they know we're on side together. And that kind of SLT moving together with the governing body behind them is really changing the way the school feels. They'll talk to you, they're not scared. And I just think it's that challenge. And actually, I think it all harks back to, I joined a national leadership program, and I sat there day one, and all they talked about was, oh, if people aren't on your bus, you've got to get them off your bus. And this whole discourse of, we've got to fire everybody and get a new team in. And I just sat there going, no, it's wrong. It's wrong. You know, these people were in it for the right reasons. At some point, things might have gone wrong. You've got to be a bit humane, I suppose. And I sat there, and all these people kept saying the same thing in these presentations. I was thinking, oh no. And I suppose my imposter really came in, and I remember sitting in the toilet crying. And Karen Giles found me. She picked me up, tapped me down, and pushed me back into the room. And I think it was that little thing she did. She just kind of went, no, don't be so stupid. You're here for a reason. Push me back in. And I've now taken with me and actually going, no, it's wrong. Stand up. You can sit there, nod, be clever about it. But actually, I think it's made me more appreciative. But actually, the change in that school has been great. If anyone wants to be a chair, please come and get in touch with me. But I think it's important. Like, I've put myself out there because I disagreed. But I think that's the key message I was trying to get across. Like, if you disagree, try and do something, not just sit and whinge about it. Be active about it and stand up. Because if you don't, like, my daughter could lose this kind of free will and passion, and actually that's what we need. So that's me.
Thank you so much, Jenna. That was inspirational. You know, courage, conviction, collaboration, you know, an epitome of partnership working and pulling people and supporting them to get to the next stage. Fantastic. You've really inspired me. Thank you. Right, our next speaker. I'm just checking on our running order. Yep, it's Alia Khan. I'm going to pass over to you. I've seen you sitting and nodding to these speakers so far, Alia.
It's been so amazing.
Fantastic. Over to you.
Brilliant. Hi, everyone. I've loved sitting here and listening to everyone speak, and, you know, amazing things. I just want to share with you a personal journey of mine from school. So basically, what we find a challenge one day, maybe tomorrow, it might just become something we just do. And I guess my idea of challenging myself and being brave is kind of like what Jenna was saying, was, you know, if you've got to stand up for something that you believe in. And first of all, I want to say I work in a really fab school, but about a year and a half ago, we were interviewing for a new head teacher. And so they'd asked us to give some questions for the part of the interview for a panel. And I had a question in mind that I wanted to ask, and I was a bit hesitant at first. And, you know, I had colleagues saying to me, you know, don't ask that question. You know, you're going to expose yourself, you're going to put yourself out there, and you know, it's not really worth rocking the boat. And so I kind of just thought, you know what, I'm going to ask it. Our school is predominantly made up of Black and ethnic minority students. About 75% of them will identify as Black and ethnic minority. But at SLT level, there was absolutely no Black and ethnic minority there at all. And I just thought, you know what, I need to ask, what can we do to change this? Because it's very important for our students and for our staff. And so I did ask the question, and the school did choose it to be asked, which I thought was really good, and I was really happy about that. And as I asked it to the potential head teachers, and then I was leaving the room, one of the governors looked up at me and kind of gave me like a little nod, like, yeah. So I kind of felt a bit better about it then. And a few months later, there was this job advertisement for assistant head teacher. And I just, well, I thought, do you know what? Let me try and apply for this. I mean, to be honest, I had no experience at SLT. I was a middle leader basically, and something inside just told me just to go for it, because sometimes you really need to be the change you want to see. And if I want to see diversity at SLT level, I'm going to have to put myself out there if nobody else is going to. And so I did. This isn't one of those stories where I'm like, yeah, I got the job. I didn't because I didn't have the experience, and I knew that. But what it did for me was it put me out there, and it kind of made me visible in a way. And from that, I actually, the new head teacher invited me to join the extended SLT team, and I am, at the moment, my voice is being heard. I'm in charge of a major project at school, and I'm taking on the MPQSL. So, a lot has happened from, this time last year. And so I guess my message to you would be to challenge yourself, and to, if you want to change something, maybe you then have to be that change that you want to see. And who knows what will happen this time next year, but I'm taking it as it goes, and I'm enjoying learning from my colleagues and learning from my MPQSL course, and I'm very excited. So that's my story. Thank you. Very short and sweet.
Short, sweet, to the point, and look at all these comments in the chat, Aliyah. Lots about courage and standing up, and really, your talk coming on from Jen's is about, being courageous and standing up for what you believe in, which is inspirational. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, we are moving on to our next speaker, and our next speaker is also a very courageous woman. Our next speaker is Anwara, one of our Women Ed London team members too. Over to you, Anwara.
Thank you, Kate. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my session, which is called Writing in Progress. I just wanted to share with you the incredible journey that I have been on for the last 2 years, which has culminated in me writing a book due to be published in September. I'm going to talk to you about some of the challenges I have faced and how I have overcome this. So currently I'm an assistant head teacher, and I have been teaching for 15 years. 4 years ago, though, was when my choosing to challenge journey began. I'd been teaching for 10 years at one school, and I decided that I wanted to become a literacy lead. So I made that very courageous leap, applied for a job, and I was successful. And that's how my choosing to challenge journey began. That one change led to a chain reaction of events which pushed me out of my comfort zone. And it was a push that was very much needed. At the same time, I began attending conferences, meeting new people, building networks and blogging. And it was amazing to see the number of people on Twitter who were encouraging me to write at the time, people who I had never met before. Shortly after that, I had some online articles published as well, which boosted my confidence. The thing to remember, though, is when you do begin to write, you are bearing your soul, and you become even more vulnerable. It is really, really important to build that network of colleagues who can provide you with not only the support, but the much needed criticism to enable reflection and continued growth. So this was a time of rapid growth for me, because I became an assistant head teacher very, very quickly. And I also began the MPQH. As soon as I started the MPQH, I realized that one of my passions was to learn more about metacognition. That journey had started way back during my degree, where I'd studied a module of neurology, and many years later, when I became a teacher, I started applying some of the principles that I'd learnt in the primary classroom. Being part of Women Ed helped me to realise that my dream of becoming a writer actually started way back when I was a young child. But it wasn't until 2019 that I approached my publisher with the initial idea. Everything was going really, really well. However, my rapid journey and personal growth made me realize that I needed a career break. Stepping back gave me the much needed time to reflect, and this was a huge challenge in itself. Little did I realize that we would be facing a global pandemic last year, and this brought even more challenges, especially the one of self-doubt. During this time also, I had a series of health issues, one of them being a breast cancer scare. But at the same time, I passed my NPQH. It was a very, very strange year. So going back to the three things that I drew upon to help myself during this challenging time were drawing upon past life experiences. And my brother actually reminded me that throughout life, life is a challenge itself, you know, but everyone has been through their own challenges in life, and it's important to draw on those life experiences. How did you deal with them? What helped you overcome them? Another important point that he pointed out to me was that it might be useful to make a list of achievements. And one thing that I began to realize is sometimes women do not think about their achievements. It is not seen as a positive character trait to have, but just making a little list helped me to realize that actually I have achieved a lot on this journey and I can carry on achieving even more. I also went back to my why. Why was I doing this? During the pandemic, the imposter syndrome continued rearing its ugly head, and some challenges became drawn out of proportion. But one thing that I drew upon was, and I'm not sure if you are a fan of Star Wars or not, but I really like The Rise of Skywalker, and this came to mind during my journey. So the female protagonist is Rey, who is a descendant of the Palpatines, i.e. the Sith Lords and the dark side, but her passion is to become a Jedi. That is her true destiny, but she has doubts about it. She is asked what she is afraid of the most, and she replies with the word myself. She also states it's because of her past, but she's told that Princess Leia had seen past that and had seen her spirit and her heart. In becoming braver, the voices of imposter syndrome can become overwhelming, but it is really important to remember that you are the one that has been chosen for good reason. So I'm going to just read out a quote to you that I came across last year as well. Our destiny is ultimately shaped by our deepest intentions and desires, by Deepak Chopra. This is a quote that again propelled me on my journey. So just a little bit about the book. It is pinned on my Twitter account. It's called Think Metacognition Powered Primary Teaching. It's got 14 chapters with case studies. Each chapter also contains summaries, reflections, teacher metacognition and pupil metacognition. It will be available for pre-order at the end of March, and it is due to be published in September. So just a few key pointers. If you want to be a writer, just do it. Create your network. Do not worry about your background or being a BAME writer or a woman. When imposter syndrome rears its ugly head, draw on your own life experiences, speak to people, talk to friends, family, connections, face the fear and do it anyway. So my question to you is, how are you going to choose to challenge? Thank you for listening.
Fantastic. Thanks, Anwara. Not only have I learned, you know, these exceptional, inspirational things about you, but you've also taught me a bit about Star Wars as well that I didn't know. Thank you. And yeah, check out Anwara's book. Incredible achievement. Thank you. Right, I'm passing over now to our next speaker, and our next speaker I'm delighted to introduce is Evelyn Ford. So Evelyn, over to you.
Hello, and thank you for having me this afternoon. I've just been listening to all those amazing stories and I'm inspired. I'm going to talk just very briefly about, for me, the power of connections, human relationships, and the networks. And they're so important to me because my journey to headship has not been easy. And I've had to challenge on a couple of occasions. And I think the one that resonates with me most is being at a governing board meeting and predominantly men in suits who really kind of showed their displeasure in something that I was presenting. And I chose to challenge, but I chose to challenge also by thinking, this is not the school for me, and actually finding a school that really resonated with my own values and what I believed in. So on my journey to headship, I have met many amazing people, and I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who have the same values as you, who are going to support you, guide you, but equally challenge you. My view is that we're on this journey to headship, or whatever it is, whatever level you are achieving to aspire, we're on this journey, but we can never do it on our own. And that's why I think somebody else mentioned it a little while ago, that you know, education is a small world. So I always say, always be kind to people, because you never know when you may meet those people again. And also you never know when that person might be sitting across from you in an interview panel, and that person may be interviewing you. So as you are on your journey and you're making those connections, I would encourage you to be kind, and I would encourage you to be authentic. And I think that has come up during the course of this afternoon about being your authentic self. For me, it's we all know that the percentage of BAME head teachers is only 3%. So for me, now that I have reached the dizzy heights of headship, I am ever so conscious of the people that have helped me on the way, the people that I've connected with, and the relationships that I've built, and the networks. You know, Women Ed, you know, Twitter is just amazing. So when I speak to people, I always talk about make space at the table for others. You know, because once you're there, you don't need to hog it all by yourself. You should make some space for other people to come and sit with you. And in doing that, I strongly encourage people to hold your hand out. But one of my best sayings, I always talk about keeping that ladder firmly rooted. Keep that ladder firmly rooted so that other people can also climb the steps with you. And I would also say, when people do reach out to you, they're reaching out to you because actually they really need you. And whilst we all have busy lives, it's really important to try and carve out some space. I spoke this morning at another International Women's Day session, and one of the things I shared was that I had 2 women reach out to me via Twitter. I'd never met them before, and it was just they were on their journey to headship. Could I have a look at their applications? I'm busy, we're all busy, but if I don't take the time and others don't take the time, then actually we're not holding our hand out. And, you know, I'm delighted that they felt brave enough to reach out to me. I carved out some time for them. And I've now, I'm delighted that we've welcomed 2 more women into headship. It's not because of me, it's, you know, partly I was able to give them a little bit of time, but they were brave enough to really just say, could you help me? So the power of connections, the power of relationships is something that is dear to my heart. And I know for sure that I wouldn't be where I am today if people hadn't tapped me on the shoulder, if people hadn't said, I'm going to help you just with that application. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. I wouldn't be where I am. And I just think that where the stats are still not good enough, we know they're not good enough, and we really want to change those stats. I just want to really stress the importance of supporting each other. So any way that I'm able to help, any way that other women are able to help, I'm absolutely sure that we will continue to do that. Reach out to me on Twitter. I'm really happy to carve out some time where I can. But if I can say anything, keep that ladder firmly rooted, never pull it up behind you, because you never know when you may actually go down that ladder, and people will be there to catch you. And I think that's what's important. So mine was very short and sweet. Power of connection, human connection, relationships are so important. And let's choose to challenge where we see that it's not working for us as women. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. So many things you're saying there that resonate with people. And I love it. Kathleen has written, I love everything Evelyn is saying. So, what a review. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
have a good afternoon.
We're moving to our next speaker, and our next speaker is Becky. And Becky, I'm going to show a slide for you, right?
Yes, please. That would be great. Thank you, Kate.
No worries. Let me get that up for you. Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, bear with me 2 seconds.
No problem.
Okay. Here we go. Oh, it was all going so well. Clicking, but I am pleased because I did have to let my cat in just then when Evelyn was talking, and so you can see my cat in the background because he was making too much noise. All right, I think I'm presenting. Over to you, Becky. Becky Griffith, sorry.
Thank you very much, Kate. So I'm Becky, and I'd like to start by saying thank you so much for having me today. I've been to several Women Ed events, including one that was held at my wonderful school last year, Sarah Burnell, and shout out to anyone from Sarah Burnell here as well. And each time I look and think, I should do that, and each time put it off. And it was Yamina B that encouraged me to speak today. So she was choosing to challenge me. So thank you to you, Yamina. So when I think about choose to challenge, I think about really empowering the people around you. And over my time in education, I've been led by some wonderful leaders, and I like to think that they have shaped the leader that I've become today. So I thought I'd share kind of 4 things that I think are really important when empowering people around you, and this all links to that idea of choose to challenge. So one thing that I think is so important is committed listening. Has anyone been in that situation where they're talking to someone and they just know the other person is not taking in or listening to what you are saying? It can be really frustrating. You feel really undervalued. So I think that something I've learned through coaching, through other leaders, is to really listen, truly listen. And I went to some coaching training, and they use a model: see, hear, speak. And for me, that's a way to truly listen to other people. I led a prefect training with our wonderful girls at Sarah Burnell last night for International Women's Day, and a student actually said, sometimes people just listen because they are waiting to speak when we should listen to understand. And for me, she hit the nail on the head. That's what our students often do to me, so I've brought her words along today. Next up is high support and high challenge. We all love creating challenging environments, but they should also be environments where people feel supported. And I truly believe that if people are supported, then they will be brave enough to be challenged too. So I'm a huge fan of Mary Myatt and some of her readings, and she talks about creating spaces where it's possible to be robust and kind. And kindness is so underrated. I think some of the best leaders show kindness in their day-to-day actions, and our students really notice that too. So I think that's so important when you're challenging others. Something else is keeping commitments. Yamina's been sending me a lot of reading around trust. I think it's a real key thing with leadership. and with students. So if you said you'll do something, then do it. If you said you're going to provide someone with an opportunity, then you must see it through, because trust really is everything. And I've been really lucky to trust so many leaders and staff around me. So I feel very cushioned in that sense. And there's really important reading on the speed of trust there, about keeping commitments to yourself, but also to others. And kind of finally coming on to this idea of finding opportunities for others to lead. And I'm not just talking about the people that feel confident to do so, the people that stand up at CPD with ease. I'm talking about the people who actually find it really hard and might say no to you the first time around, like Yamina did today. It's about going back to those members of staff, some I know that are on this call from my school, and really asking them again, come on, you can do this, and encourage them. And that's all staff. So in our school, we have a culture where our TAs will present at SLT or Middle Leaders Forum. And that's so important to feel valued. And that's something really important to me. I'm just going to read 2 quotes from my students and then I'll finish up. So as part of the leadership training I did with them yesterday, they said, I will not be apologetic for being passionate and taking charge, and I will listen to those who need to be heard more. And I pledge to never hold back or have any second thoughts before saying or doing something. So they really do inspire me. Finally, on the final slide, just a quote from one of my favourite poets, Rupi Kaur, about recognising the resilient and striking women around us. We all move forward when we recognise how resilient and striking the women around us are. And sitting here today, this afternoon, has just filled me with quite a lot of emotion, really, to see the inspirational women and the dynamic environment that Women Ed creates for everyone. So thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Becky. Really inspirational. The way you spoke so clearly around your ideas. Are you a teacher by any chance?
No, I'm just stepping in today.
Fantastic. Really, thank you so much for taking that step and presenting for us today. We really welcome that. Okay, just to highlight to people, because we have so many fantastic people speaking, we are going to be running ever so slightly late, so we will go over until about 3:15. So I hope you will stay with us just as we finish up, because we still have 3 incredible people who will be speaking, 3 incredible women. And I'm going to hand over to Karen now, Karen McIntosh.
Hey guys.
Karen, I'm going to show your slides as well, so bear with me 2 seconds.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the invitation. It's been such a wonderfully inspirational and courageous afternoon of stories. I've really enjoyed and feel so empowered by listening to everyone's stories so far. And I've got loads and loads of notes and takeaways. And I think more than anything, it's all about impact and how we feel and how this is impacting us. And I wanted to talk to you guys about what we then do with that. What are we going to do? And one thing that I like to do is pay it forward. So using the UN SDGs to promote gender equality is what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. And like I said, I like to pay it forward. And one thing that brings us all together, whether or not we're in senior leadership, middle leadership, or a classroom teacher, is that we're leaders of young women, leaders of girls who we were at one point. And it would be ideal if we were in a world where we didn't have to have these afternoons, where we had to share our empowering stories to light flames in others. And I feel very passionate about one thing, which I think, again, all of us have in common, which is lighting the way for the young people that are in our care that we teach. Going back to the theme of the C's, I've noticed a number of them come along, and some of them are in the Women Ed 8 C's: courage, caring, culture, conscious, coaching, confidence, challenge, connection. And I'm going to be thinking a bit more about character education and how we can pay it forward to the young girls in our classroom. Jenna mentioned her daughter earlier, and it was really sort of capturing that spirit of how we empower and empowered women empower women. And then also the idea of a quote that I always see online, and I don't know whose quote it is, but it's be the person you needed when you were younger. And I think all of us here today are doing that even now, in encouraging these conversations and sharing these stories, but how can we bring it back into the classroom? Next slide, please. So the UN goals are a set of 17 goals that have been set out by the UN countries, and they're a real call to action. And they're about fighting for change, no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality. And we can see just within the first 5 goals, both education and gender equality come up. And they're all about promoting prosperity, they're about ending poverty, and they are global goals, but how can we use them in our own communities, in our own organisations? And I try and use them for impact. Now, there's a mutual benefit because they benefit us as women, as teachers, but they also benefit students in regards to character education and real empowerment. And the ones that I focus on tend to be quality education and gender equality, but also number 10, reduced inequalities, because I'm what you would call intersectional. So not only am I BAME, I'm female. So I face a lot of challenges that many of you also face in the audience today and who have been speaking today. So we have a few sections that we can fall into and really that are really important to all of us. However, there might be times, like Aaliyah was saying, where you feel that you can't challenge the system. So you can choose to challenge by introducing these goals, because these are UN goals. We are a UN member state. So it's our human right to have no poverty. It's our human right for gender equality. And by using these in the classroom and by empowering young women, we're allowing that to be sustainable, because sustainable is all about building a future while also protecting the present. So we're looking after ourselves and we're protecting ourselves, but we're also really putting these thoughtful actions in place for these women who may end up as teachers. I know probably the most influential women in my life were teachers. I wouldn't be a science teacher today if it wasn't for my science teacher. So we really do make an impact with each other and with the women in the classroom. So I'm sure we all provide relevant subject role models. I'm sure we listen to girls' voices, but how do we coach them? How do we build their resilience? Their resilience, not the whole class, but girls' resilience. How are we developing their emotional intelligence and preparing them for the future and for gender inequality? And how can we get them to understand, and not just girls, but the boys as well, what the future could look like if there was a scale that actually was balanced. Next slide, please. So it's really about not just finding opportunities within your lessons, within your curriculum, but creating those opportunities for your students, whether they're your tutees, whether they're your subject students. Like I mentioned, could a system be looked at into how we build resilience in girls and how we build emotional intelligence in girls? Could we be more authentic? All of us have been speaking about authenticity, and I love that. I think that is probably one of my superpowers, is that I walk into a classroom and I will be my authentic self at all times. I've cried in front of my students watching a documentary and had to, pre-COVID times, give out tissues and hugs because we shared that emotional experience, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But sometimes girls feel that having an emotional reaction to something isn't cool, and boys might laugh, and that's not cool. Why can't we be our authentic selves? Why can't we allow girls to be more resilient and be more authentic? And I am talking in this way in terms of character education and not just curriculum, because obviously they run parallel to each other. So I've loved listening to these success stories. Maybe it might be we need to share our success stories more often. Bring it closer to home. Talk about the SLT member, that one female governor. How do we make it relevant for them so that we are creating that sustainable future, and that we are keeping it real with them and being authentic, and knowing that if we do have quality education and gender equality, we can get to no poverty, good health and well-being, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, and overall reduced inequalities. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you, Karen. Fantastic. I really love the way those goals really frame everything we're talking about, but we find our place within them so that we can, I really liked your equation there, you know, so that we can put things together to equal more. And I think that really symbolises what we are as a group as well. So thank you so much, Karen. Okay, we are moving into our next speaker, and we have Linda. Can I see Linda on here? Linda, are you with us? I'm not sure we've got Linda today. So I wonder if we can move straight on to Emma, and maternity teacher, paternity teacher. Is that okay, Emma?
Yes, I am here and ready. I do have slides. Are they
yes, I'm going to pop those up.
Simply because I don't think I remember what I'm going to say otherwise. I don't remember most things.
I'm sure you do. You're the consummate professional, Emma. Right, here we go. I'm sharing your slides. Here they come. There we go.
Amazing. So just to contextualise, I am Emma Shepherd from the MTPT project, and my son is creeping ever closer to the door where he's been told that he's not allowed for the next 5 minutes, and he's sort of sticking his nose against the glass and looking in lovingly. So we'll see if he joins us today. So my name is Emma Shepherd. I'm the founder of the UK's only charity for parent teachers, the Maternity Teacher Paternity Teacher Project, or MTPT project for short. We were founded in 2016 when I went on leave with my cheeky little son. And our core business is inspiring, empowering and connecting teachers choosing to complete professional development on parental leave. However, now we've grown to be a much wider support network for parent teachers across the UK. So today I'm going to be telling you 5 tips. It says support on my next slide. I wish it said empower now. So 5 tips for empowering staff over the pregnancy and maternity period. Now, for those of you who know the MTPT project, you know that we do choose to challenge some of the limiting stereotypes and ingrained beliefs around motherhood and what should and shouldn't be done on parental leave. So that's probably something that you'll hear come through in my presentation today. So my first tip is all around communication. Now, I personally believe that effective communication could probably solve everybody's problems. So when it comes to pregnancy and maternity leave, effective communication before, during and following the leave, often if that's formalized into a pregnancy and maternity policy, so a meeting, 3 clear meetings that staff are allowed to have, can enable line managers to really listen to what their colleagues need and want, and understand that no 2 individuals are the same. So we may have colleagues who really need a great deal of support through their pregnancy and want to completely step back from school when they are on leave. We might also have colleagues who are frustrated by the idea of being away from school for a period of time and want to keep up the pace of their work for as long as possible and are interested in interviews and promotions on leave. So really important to listen to individuals and respond on a case-by-case basis. And the communication can be really helpful in empowering teachers there. Before teachers go on leave, rather than just sort of throwing them out of the school building with a bunch of flowers and some nice cupcakes, agree on who they'd like to stay in contact with, how, when, how often, and why they want to be contacted on leave, because there's nothing worse than hearing about something that you really would have liked to be involved in after the date because somebody was a bit too nervous to tell you about it because they weren't sure if they wanted to bother you. This communication can also lead to using kit days creatively in a way that suits colleagues and their individual circumstances with childcare and the way that their leave is going. So talk to each other and listen. Next slide, please. My second tip is all about addressing and being aware of our own, being conscious of our biases is what I'd call it. So we talk about unconscious bias a lot, but if we draw our unconscious bias into consciousness, then we can actually start to address what we feel mothers should and shouldn't do. And without getting too Freudian, we all have a lot of ingrained beliefs around what mothers should do, what working mothers should do. And actually listening to our colleagues and respecting their wants and needs can help us to really address the way that we feel that a working mother should behave in order to empower the individual and support the individual based on how they want to be a mother, a working mother, and in a way that works for them. So challenging our prejudices or discriminations or assumptions around motherhood there. Next slide, please, Kate. Tip number 3, Women Ed talk about it a lot, is all about flexibility. So not just flexible working, but flexible approaches to pregnancy, flexible approaches to maternity leave, and when teachers return to work. Now, that flexibility can provide physical, logistical, and emotional support. So if, for example, a colleague is struggling with their mental health in the perinatal or postnatal period, flexibility can allow them to transition out and then back into school in a way that doesn't break them. Pregnancy can be physically more strenuous than, well, one pregnancy can be more physically strenuous than another. So being flexible around duties, being flexible around how classrooms are set up, being flexible around what we are asking teachers to do, or the spaces that we are providing for teachers can be really supportive. And then the big obvious one, flexibility around childcare demands, which are one of the biggest reasons that teachers don't come back into education is simply because the beginning and the end of the day doesn't match up with nursery and school times. Now, when we're offering this flexibility to our parent teachers, what's important is to do so without forcing or implying compromise. So if a middle leader wants to work part-time, they don't need to give up their TLR in order to do that, or they don't need to be paid for pro rata TLR when they're doing the whole TLR. If a senior leader needs to take it slightly easy during their pregnancy because otherwise it's too much of a strain, that shouldn't be done in a way that that belittles them or patronizes them or implies that they have to have responsibilities taken away from them permanently. So really important to empower with flexibility rather than limit with flexibility. Next slide, please. And then this is something that a lot of teachers don't like to talk about, and I don't think a lot of British people like to talk about, is money. It is a nauseating shock to the system, the cost of becoming a parent. It is frightening, and I don't think I know any new mother who hasn't cried when they've seen the cost of nursery fees or childcare, or been completely shocked at the drop in their wage and how dependent they are, if they are in a couple, how dependent they are on their partner during maternity leave financially. So being able to offer face-to-face or verbal reassurance and clarity around exactly what maternity pay means, or exactly how shared parental leave can work, how kit days will be paid, how that impacts tax and pension contributions, and clever ways of managing those things. So really simple tips like don't take a kit day until after your 4 months, because otherwise it's going to reduce your take-home pay for your maternity pay, or take shared parental leave over the holidays so that you can get paid over the holidays. And there's an amazing lady who advocates for us called Kinza, who has a website called Shared Parental Leave for Teachers, and she helps teachers figure all of that out. Those tips are really helpful in empowering teachers to know what the right decisions for them are when it comes to length of leave and how they want to address their working patterns. And also encouraging rather than permitting teachers to return to work on the first day of the holidays, because that means that they can get paid over the summer holiday, Christmas holiday, Easter holiday period at a time when they really need the money. So teachers coming back on the first day of term means that they lose out on 2 weeks worth of pay potentially, or 6 weeks worth of pay, when they could really do with that pay because they feel cheeky doing it, or they feel like it would be discouraged, and we should encourage them to take advantage of that holiday pay. Next slide, thank you. And then my last tip is to raise awareness of the support networks that we have. Many of us are on Twitter, so we know about these networks, but colleagues outside of Twitter might not know about them. And parental leave and returning to work after becoming a parent can be very lonely places, and there can be a lot of fronting to pretend that everything is fine because we're not sure if people would really understand our complaints or the things that we are struggling with. So whether those support networks are within school or outside of school, raising awareness as part of your whole school wellbeing offer. So it's not just for parent teachers. If you just raise awareness of all of these networks in the green box to everybody at key moments during the school year, then everybody knows that these networks are available to get together with like-minded people that can support and empower them. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Emma. And I think what an amazing place to finish, because, you know, knowing how you have personally and with your colleagues established that network and then connected to other networks and then interconnected, you know, it's a really fantastic example of how the support networks and the communication networks really collaborate together to empower all of us, you know, women, parents, all of us. So thank you so much. Right, everybody, we have had an incredible conference. I'm incredibly inspired by what I've heard. I'm going to pass over to Yamina, my Women Ed London colleague, and she's just going to update us on the Mentimeter situation.
Thank you. Are you okay to share, Kate?
Share the slides, the Women Ed London slides.
Thank you so much. So please, just a reminder to share your suggestions about what are the barriers that you're facing in education, and particularly women are facing in education. Kate is going to share the code with you once more. And then what we're going to do is actually, we'd love to hear your pledges, and we'd like to see what your pledges are for how are you going to choose to challenge? How will you choose to challenge? And we'd love for you to do that. So just a reminder of the Menti, if you go to menti.com, and the code will be on your screen in a moment.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there we go.
47, 62, 50 and 47. What are the barriers to women leading in education? Kate's already, thank you so much, Kate, because you'll be promoting that all throughout the event as well. Thank you. And next slide, please. And then we're going to end, if that's all right. So what is your Choose to Challenge pledge? Write your pledge and share on a tweet, please, but we'd also love to hear it on a chat, so on the chat here. So please share your pledges on the chat here and then tweet it out for us using the hashtags #WomenEd, #IWD 2021 and hashtag Choose to Challenge. Write your pledge on the chat, please. I'm going to give you a minute and I'll start reading some of those out as well. We'd love to hear from the speakers as well. If you'd like to share your pledges, feel free to unmute yourself and show us your videos. What are your pledges? What is your Choose to Challenge pledge? And it's always how we end our Women Ed conferences. Always very inspiring to hear what others have got to say. Just 1 minute. I can see they're popping up. Speakers, feel free to unmute yourself and share your screen. Sarah, you were the first off the bat. Sarah, would you like to share your pledge?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's been incredibly inspiring today. I think for us with teacher wellbeing, it has really inspired us today to persevere with sharing that message and offering the support with teacher wellbeing, because I believe it's absolutely crucial at the moment. So thank you, everybody who's spoken today. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Sarah. Who would like to go next? Any of our speakers? Feel free to unmute yourself. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hey, yeah, I'm going to second what Sarah said. It's been really great. I thought I was going to log off and go and deal with the 3-year-old, but I've hidden in here to listen to everything else that you guys have been saying. I got out of that really easily. Yeah, my Choose to Challenge pledge is, I love the, and I'm not too sure who said it, but the theme of connection and community and support. Yeah, I'm really a massive advocate for just bringing everyone together, and it's been really lovely to hear you all, but I do think that we are stronger together, and I do think that we can have much more of a bigger impact together. And you know, one voice sometimes in the wood, right, can't be heard, but if we all speak together and speak loud, then we can make some real great change. So that's my Choose to Challenge: collaborate more and figure out how to use Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And Emma?
I forgot that the hashtag was Choose to Challenge, if I'm honest, when I was planning this speech, and then listened to everybody. And actually, what really struck me as I was like, sort of scrambling to think, oh God, how am I going to fit this square peg into a round hole? Was that challenging ideas around motherhood is something that has always been core to the MTPT project, and that is so gladly received by so many teachers, so many women. So continuing to challenge that. I think we forget sometimes when we're involved in organisations the impact that we have. And so thank you for reminding us of that today. So challenging, limiting stereotypes around mothers.
Thank you very much, Emma. Anybody else?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put 2 forward from a personal challenge. I am going to start writing more. I started dabbling in it, but I really want to do it. So I'm going to be brave and just put it out there, and and hopefully. And from a professional challenge, I was really interested in one of the presentations earlier was talking about how we educate the young women we work with. So I think I really want to think about how I'm going to do that in my school and how I can help people do that as well.
Thank you very much. I think Karen's got a hand up. I love the raise hand option here. Karen, go ahead, and then Kathleen.
So my challenge is to speak my truth and to model how to do so in a way which is not confrontational, but yet raises expectations.
Thank you very much. Kathleen?
My challenge is a personal one, to keep using my voice to inspire others. And so my pledge is to help and support others always, because everyone's on the journey, just at different stages.
Thank you very much. Yolande?
Every time I hear someone else's, mine changes, but I'm going to commit to choosing to continually challenge this perception of competition between women in leadership. Just keep challenging that.
Love that. Thank you so much. Priya, and then Karen.
I'm going to keep promoting 2 professions that are dear to my heart: counselling and teaching. And I'm going to keep pushing that petition, counselling for teachers, because we need to invest. I believe teachers are the salt of the earth, so let's look after them like the treasures they are. Thank you for this afternoon. I never planned to stay for the whole thing, but I could not switch off. It was absolutely fantastic. Well done.
Thank you. And Karen?
I was just thinking about the phrase 10% braver, and I'm just going to also not only carry on using that phrase, but try and bring that into my classroom as well. I'm going to use that phrase in my classroom, remind my girls that they can be 10% braver all the time, and it will take them places.
Thank you so much. We've got a pledge here from Stephanie. I pledge to embrace the imperative and endure the anxiety rash. I have expertise, not mystical lady power. I love that. I will apply, Isabel, I will apply for a higher position to have the power to make decisions and empower more women and girls in schools. Iram says, feeling inspired and courageous. Thank you to all the speakers. It's been an absolutely amazing afternoon. I completely agree. Kofo says, being true to myself in the face of negative reception. Just one for actively seeking, from Krishna, actively seeking to encourage all to climb, including those who are less confident. Aliyah says, my pledge is to continue to challenge myself daily, and when I become comfortable, then challenge myself again, but also be okay to take time for yourself and prioritize our emotional and physical well-being. There's just so many pledges here that we've not got time to read them all, but please keep them coming.
Becky, I know, as our speaker, Becky wanted to share one.
Yes, go ahead.
Raise her hand, who said, yeah.
Hi everyone. I'm going to choose to challenge people around me who sometimes don't have that bravery like me today, to get rid of that imposter syndrome and say, do you know what, I am enough and I'm here to say what I need to say. So yeah.
Fantastic. And I think Anwara also has, you raised your hand, Anwara.
Thank you. Yes, so I just wanted to say that my Choose to Challenge pledge is going to be there for others, and just as others have encouraged me throughout my incredible journey, I hope to be there to encourage others as well.
Thank you. And my pledge is to continue empowering and giving all women from diverse backgrounds a voice, but also continue being an inclusive ally as a visibly Muslim woman. Okay, over to you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm so inspired, honestly.
Thanks, Yamina. All right, so thank you, everybody. Thank you very much to our speakers for taking the time to share their stories and their words of wisdom today with us. I know we all do feel really inspired. And thank you to all our participants. I hope that you heard lots of messages of support and empowerment. And I know that all of us, you know, reach out to us if you want to reach out to us. We can carve out some time to support and just talk through things with you. Yeah, everybody's nodding. All right. And I would just like to say thank you to the Women Ed London team. Yamina, Fiona, Christala, Paula, and Claire has been doodling away. I haven't been able to go on Twitter myself, but please, please, please check out Claire's doodles because they are beautiful and really, you know, that's another C, creativity, isn't it, that we need to embrace. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a fantastic Saturday afternoon, a fantastic Sunday, and of course, a fantastic Monday, International Women's Day.
Hey, can I just say something?
Go on, you mean.
A phenomenal host. So can we give Kate a round of applause as well?
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much. Absolutely brilliant. Could we take a Choose to Challenge photo? Is that all right before we end? Just gonna help myself. Sorry, ready? So I think it's our right hand. Ready?
Oh yeah, Choose to Challenge. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Thank you. 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Thank you, everybody.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kate. Have a lovely Saturday.
Bye.
And
wow, well done, guys. Thank you.
Okay, you were amazing. Has the webinar stopped? Because I'm just scared it's going to continue.
Shall we stop recording, Paula?
Let's do that.